has been about 9 months since the last competition, but now Jellybean is ready to fight again at Bot Brawl Event 22 at Anime North 2026, which will take place 1 week from now. Now a lot has changed with Jellybean in the last 9 months, so let's jump straight into the video and see what's new. Firstly, Jellybean has gotten quite a bit shorter. He's about 1 centimeter shorter than previous, and this is evidenced by the fact that we are now using these 30mm aluminum standoffs instead of the 40mm aluminum standoffs that we were using previously. This shorter height means that some redesigns were necessary, such as adjusting the height of these front guards, which are now no longer symmetrical, and adjusting the height at which the motors were mounted. Additionally, the armor had to be shortened, and the armor is now a singular piece, which ended up saving some weight as well, and is just one piece of TPU. The front guard is made out of PETG, but that's still a separate piece. This also meant that we have to reduce the size of the wheel to ensure that there is a bit less clearance over here and keep the wheel as protected as possible. The wheel now has 6 of these springy spokes instead of 4 as previous, which should make it a little bit more durable. Also, I'm planning to actually glue the rubber band to the PETG wheel to ensure that it doesn't fall off during a fight. All of these changes gave me some more weight, which allowed me to strengthen other parts, such as the front guard, make it a little bit thicker and less flexible, but also to make the weapon heavier. The weapon has gone from being about 98 grams to being around 116 grams. And I actually have 2 weapons now, as you can see. Both of these are the same, more or less. The old weapon was made out of unhardened 4340 steel, which was a little bit too soft, but if I hardened it, it would have probably sufficed. However, I was in a rush and I wasn't able to harden the steel the way I wanted to. The new weapons are made out of AR500 steel, which has already been tempered and should be hard enough to withstand more impact than the unhardened 4340. Additionally, there has been some design changes. As you can see, the old weapon had lots of sort of these thin sections here, which made it quite susceptible to bending. And in conjunction with the soft metal, this resulted in the weapon bending quite catastrophically, and this was causing vibration during the fight. And that's why lots of screws were coming loose. But now, the weapon is made out of AR500 steel, which first of all shouldn't bend as much, and the design is also ensuring that the weapon does not bend, because now all of these sections are much thicker. The area around the motor is thicker as well. The only sections that are thin are the sort of counterweight sections, but there's now 3 of them instead of just 1 as before, so this should also be less susceptible to bending. This is actually a very similar design to the one I discussed in my how to design a weapon CAD video. It's just that the outer members have been pushed inward and kind of conjoined to strengthen the area around the motor and reduce the flexibility. The new weapon does also have a very slight reach advantage, which should allow us to get more bite than we did previously and deliver more of our energy into the opponent. Overall, the new weapon should be able to inflict more damage, but also be able to withstand more impact and last longer. There were also some small changes to the weapon system. The collet now has less teeth, but the teeth are thicker. This should make the collet itself more durable, but should also protect the motor against shock a little bit better than it did before. And the bearing holder, it's a little bit more flimsy, but it's made out of TPU now, which should allow for some bending and some movement of the bearing, so hopefully it doesn't crack immediately like the old PETG bearing holder, and it should be able to absorb some more impact. The new bot is electronically pretty much identical to the previous bot, the only difference really being the battery. Previously, the battery was 3 250 mAh cells wired in series, and now the battery consists of 3 350 mAh cells, which are also wired in series. And now the batteries are actually located in this TPU housing that I printed and held inside with a rubber band. This is to ensure that the batteries can pass the pen test, which is a safety check at Bot Brawl. If the batteries can be poked with a pen, it fails. And poking them with a pen is actually quite easy because of these sort of grills in the top and bottom plates, which is why I had to print this TPU enclosure. And so, those are pretty much all of the major changes that I have made to the bot without having to change the carbon fiber. And yes, this was the main concern about redesigning the bot. I did not want to have to cut new carbon fiber plates, because the ones I was using previously were perfectly intact. They didn't get damaged in any of the fights, and I figured why not try and reuse them, because I still have these 2 plates which are completely untouched and another spare. So even if these do get damaged, the robot should still be able to fight. In the future, I may consider fully redesigning the bot and redesigning the carbon fiber plates in order to make sure that the whole design has been done in Onshape, which will allow me to sort of manage my weight better, because Onshape can calculate the weight of different parts based on their volume and density. And I would also be able to run simulations such as how force will affect the weapon, and how force could affect the wheels as well, and where the weak points of the robot are. So that is something to consider for the future. But before we do that, let's get the robot testing, and let's see what this weapon is capable of. The first thing we tested the robot's weapon against was this piece of TPU side armor, which I was going to use as part of a top armor configuration. It is very important to test the robot's weapon against TPU, because TPU is the most common material used by builders as armor, because it is very good at absorbing impact and it is incredibly tough, and it's easy to 3D print. As you can see, the test produced some very promising results. Our weapon was able to poke some very nice holes in the armor, make some very nice dents in the armor, and I think this shows that our weapon is capable of dealing some big damage to our opponents, and I hope we can score very high on the damage category in our fights. Weapon tests against the wood were much less interesting, partly because the wood kept on just falling out of the robot, but the weapon was still able to scratch up the wood quite nicely, and I think it did a better job than the last version of the robot did. Testing against the Band-Aid box was just for fun, and of course, the cardboard box stood absolutely no chance against our weapon. And now it is time for the event. So our team headed to the venue, we got our passes, and got set up in the pits. And all that was left to do was wait for our first fight. We continued to monitor the schedule as it was changing throughout the event, and at one point our opponents changed, and we were set up to fight against Lovebite, which is a bot with an overhead drill that tries to drill through the top armor of the opponent. This meant that I needed to prepare my robot with the top armor configuration, which features only 2mm of TPU on the top to protect it from overhead attacks, which isn't much, but it is better than nothing. Then it was time to load into the box, and here is how our first fight went.
3, 2, 1, fight our last fight! Lovebite has an overhead drill. That's why he's trying to drill into the opponent. You gotta wonder, why does the robot just put a drill on and drill in everybody? Well, let's see how that works.
We got some of the wedge, that's nice.
Jellybean has a pretty mean horizontal weapon on it. Lovebite's not going to want to get its arm hit by that big spinning blade. I want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Take shots on its front around. Here's how about it. Here is Jellybean!
Jellybean was suffering from some drive issues at the start of the match, probably something to do with the receiver and the ESC, but luckily the issue resolved itself and we were able to drive normally again. After that, we were able to deliver 2 very nice hits before we delivered the knockout blow by breaking the arm mount on Lovebite, and without a functioning weapon, the driver tapped out and gave us our first win of the event. Our next fight was against a robot named O Invincible, a tough vertical spinner with 4-wheel drive. Now, I knew that O Invincible was going to be one of the toughest opponents we would face in this event, because he placed very well in the last event that we went to. Now, my driver Alan and I thought we had a good chance if we could get to his wheels at the back, which were exposed so he can drive if he's inverted. Let's see how that fight went.
2, 1, fight. Jellybean hasn't got the starting square yet, not a good start. O Invincible coming over and getting us choice of impacts here.
Is the weapon dead? Already? Oh no.
Gene, 3 together in the corner there. Good way to start a match.
Pin him, pin him, pin him.
Are you guys stuck? We're going to ask the robots to separate. There you go.
Wait, try bringing the weapon power down and all the way back up again.
Balls up twice after that separation. And Jellybean's weapon might be down. I don't think it's going to start it back up. Right old lawnmower. 2 minutes left.
He's hung up on the floor.
O Invincible so far hasn't gone more than 5 seconds. They're going to hit Jellybean here.
Unfortunately, the weapon died on the very first weapon-to-weapon exchange, and it didn't come back, and the rest of the fight was just O Invincible choosing where he wanted to hit us as much as he wanted and continuing to push us around the box, and Jellybean was too slow to really do anything about it. The reason the weapon died in this fight is because after I made the robot shorter, the clearance between the weapon blade and the weapon motor wires was decreased. And now, when the weapon collet flexes and the weapon blade tilts downward, it can tilt downward just enough to cut the weapon motor wires. Now this only happens against vertical spinners, because when the vertical spinner disc hits our weapon up at the front, the back part of our weapon goes down, and it goes down low enough just to chop our weapon motor wires and stops the weapon motor from working. For our next fight, I tried to zip tie the wires down more, but as you will see, this wasn't enough. Clearly, I need to redesign this robot, and I'm thinking I will use a belt-driven weapon, and I will ensure that the weapon will not cut the belt. The reason why Jellybean is so slow is because his drive is running on 2 N20 motors at 350 RPM. Now, most people will use 500 RPM, and most people won't even use these motors because these motors are more suited for the 150 gram ferry weight category than they are for the 1 pound category. However, I picked these motors because they're super light, and I was okay with it being slow because I thought slow robot would be easier to control. However, I'm starting to realize that having a fast robot is more important in a situation where the weapon is down and you need control to try and win a match. So I think I will take this into account for my next design. Despite this, Jellybean was still able to drive for the full 3 minutes and managed to make it to a judge's decision, which unsurprisingly resulted in a win for O Invincible.
3, 2, 1.
I don't know what happened.
We have a unanimous decision, 45 to 12 in favor of O Invincible.
The TPU armor actually held up incredibly well in this fight, and it protected Jellybean just enough to keep him driving for the full 3 minutes. It is worth mentioning that O Invincible was having some battery issues at the time, and his weapon wasn't spinning at 100%, so if he had more weapon power he probably would have been able to do more damage than you can see here. Our next opponent was a robot named Croc, a beater bar style vertical spinner with 2-wheel drive. Let's see how this fight went.
3, 2, 1, fight. Battlebot fight. So Jellybean featuring a horizontal spinner, set up mid-height for the kind of impact meaning the sides and back of the opponent. Avoid the weapon if possible.
Jellybean was able to get about 2 good hits before the weapon died for the same reasons as in the O Invincible fight.
After which, Croc continued to bully us around the box, and once again, we were too slow to really do anything about it. Eventually, one of our motor wires disconnected, so we lost our right side drive. Then Croc hit us one last time, and that stuck us against the side of the arena wall, after which we couldn't right ourselves and we got counted out. Even though the robot didn't perform as well as we hoped it would, this event was still a very good learning experience for our entire team. These fights helped me identify some key weaknesses with our bot's design that I wouldn't have even thought of before. My hope is that using the information that I gathered from this event, I can redesign a new bot that will be much more competitive and might even be able to win a tournament for my next event. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.